Hey, welcome. This is Metal Sharpens Metal, and my name is Daniel. Today, I am super excited to do the songs Frost and Hail by the band Uneven Structure. Two songs for the price of one because they go right into each other. They flow seamlessly. The whole album actually is one kind of coherent whole, and we'll talk about all that later, but I'm very excited. These guys are awesome. It's off their 2013 album Fabruce, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's check it out. All right, so they do have a music video for Frost and Hail that we're going to be checking out. Unfortunately, they cut it like a minute and a half into Hail, I guess, to make it a little bit shorter and easier to consume. But no, we're doing all of it. We're going to go into Hail after that. I'm going to have to use some magic editing skills. Hopefully that works out well. But let's check it out. Oh my gosh, I found so many good bands on Basic. The drummer is such a huge reason why I love this album. So that right hand on the ride, I think you could call that a metric modulation. And the tone of it just sounds, and the like in the guitars, everything just sounds like little crystalline, snowy things are happening. I love it. I love it. Little spoken word in the background. So this is a little vision of our main character here. We'll talk about him. Their vocalist too, he is so great at carrying these sections. Great little harmony there. All right, here we go. Ah! The best driving riff. Super classic Djenty riff here. They all got stank face going because they know this slaps. Doing the modulation again. I don't normally like running, like for exercise, but this album could make me want to run a marathon or something. And so yeah, the music video does go well with the lyrics. This is the protagonist guy flying around with the red mask there. Another groove change up. So epic. This is about to be the best transition between two songs that I've ever heard. It just lights a fire in my bones. Starting to fly a little bit here. Come on. Oh my gosh. So that was the song transition, by the way. Hey, welcome back. You see what I mean? How can we just ignore all this part of the song? I love that these guys write riffs. They're playing the same thing, but listen to the different phrasing of the guitars. Now the strings are open. And then so cool. Groove is real. Thirsty. There's so many little layers in the background. It sounds like little hand drums almost. Like an ambient kind of drone underneath everything. These guys are really big into that. Get it, build the epicness back up. And then let's just change the pulse again, you know? Why not? Give the people what they want. I love how long it takes for that chord to change, just driving on that one note for a while. Yes, that is a very Tesseract move right there. There's more. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere. Maybe one more? There you go. Did you hear that?
Did you hear that?
Oh man, so cool. Oh, so much to talk about. I know this is going to come as a shock to anybody who's been watching any of these videos, but for this band, I had zero trouble figuring out which songs to introduce the band with. The only choice was either should I do these two or the entire album, and that would have been super long. Didn't do that, obviously, but these songs just totally sum up the band. It's off my favorite album of theirs. I mentioned it's called Fabruce. It's my favorite album of theirs, and it's my favorite Djent album of all time, like, no question.
So best.
This album carried me through squat sessions, and all kinds of workouts. And the way it concludes sonically, mixing with the lyrics, is just such a grand thing. Like, it was really well packaged and put together. It's kind of like reading Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings for the first time and getting to the end and seeing everything kind of complete that circle, seeing every detail pulled in and every question answered. It's so good. At the very end of this album, the music just swells into this big song called Plenitude. And it, like I said, it sums everything up, it captures it, and it just kind of fades out into this ambient drone. It's supposed to be seamless between every song, so I would actually kind of get mad listening on my iPod back in the day because there'd be like a half-second split right between the two songs. I'd be like, ah! It tried to load it, but it couldn't do it fast enough, so there'd be a little like, and then it would hit. It's so good. It's so amazing. Even down to the mixing and mastering, I find it pretty unique because a lot of Djent albums of the day were making very like precise, sterile sounding kind of mixes with their drums and their guitars and the vocals and everything. So for this one to sound a little bit more raw and organic and like actual kind of live performances, it was a really realistic sound, and because these guys are so good at their instruments, it just sounds that much better. So fun fact, you may have noticed those lyrics were a little oddly written. The grammar was a little different maybe than what you're used to. So this band is French.
French? Classic?
First French band we've had on the channel, by the way. And their lead vocalist is named Mathieu Romarin. I hope I'm saying that mostly right. And in some dark circles of the internet, he is actually known as Bud. What? He has a nickname? How have I never heard of this? Well, because it's probably not real. But the band posted a video of Mathieu doing a vocal take for one of their songs on this album called Buds, and it was titled like this. I'm going to probably show it in editing here, but you know, buds, like flower buds. That's kind of what the song is talking about. Anyway, this girl in the comments apparently thought that was his actual name. Yeah, you can see right there. She is right about him being very skilled, at least. She got that part right, but please remember her in your prayers tonight. So this album concept would take a fair bit of time to fully explain, but to kind of sum it up, a godlike character who was born in the existential void goes through a philosophical journey of self-sentientizing his ontological essence in order to reach full being realization of his inner nucleus.
Gosh. Almost fell asleep during that sentence.
Okay. If that's difficult for you to follow too, it's probably because you're not French enough, honestly. I'm man enough to admit that French people are probably smarter than me. I mean, they have René Descartes on their team. He was the guy that said famously, "I think, therefore I am." Now, he was doing that as a Christian to kind of point to a Christian understanding of reality and metaphysics. But yeah, this album is not quite doing that. So just so you know, when you look at this lyric book, it's just a big wall of text. That's how they do the whole lyrics for the album. It's clearly meant to be one single concept, one idea that is played over the whole album. They broke it up into songs for listenability, I'm guessing, but even those songs, like I said, feed into each other. They use motifs from old songs and the lyrics fit the motifs well. Like I said, it's put together really well, but it's one of those big start to finish type deals. Now, it's funny, the lyrics, like I said, they're a little odd to read. The meter of his voice and the phrasing that he chose was kind of off. I think some of that comes down to, you know, him being French and English isn't his first language. That's totally fine. But it's kind of like he picked up an English thesaurus, found the biggest words he could find, and put them into a cosmology textbook for second year philosophy students or something. Those types of overly complex word choices and things like that isn't normally something I like. I like when things are accessible and when you can teach things in an accessible way, when you can explain things in an accessible way. You don't have to make it sound like a textbook. Now, I'm not trying to bash on him for his word usage or anything, but the reason that this became my favorite Djent album of all time is because Mathieu does such a great job of tying in melodies with the riffs in a very memorable way. The riffs are sick. Like they're so good and I will love them no matter what. But the way that he makes his vocal melodies fit with that and makes it memorable, I remember the melodies. I don't know what he was saying. So I mean, you definitely, need a little bit of assistance to kind of read along with this. All right, so looking at the lyrics, right at the beginning of Frost here, he starts almost in the middle of a sentence here. He says, "Gray landscape filled with pitch black clouds. All heat has gone, sensing frost." He even says that the frost is surrounding everything and freezes it. So like I said, it's about this character who's kind of on this journey towards sentience, godhood, things like that. We'll talk a little bit more about the further implications later, but that's like the main framework you need to understand this. So this is describing his journey. And between the frost and the black clouds, we see a very kind of still, cold opening to his experience of after he's been born. Later on down here, he says, "The only visible waypoints giving a comprehension." So he's being guided by kind of the one thing that he can see through the storm. The weather is really important in this album. It's changing through each of the songs. We start with frost, which is, still frozen tundra. And then we have hail, which is still cold, but at least it's not total stasis anymore. There is movement. The hail is falling. And then here, there's walls of rain. So there's rainfall. Things are getting a little bit warmer. But what's interesting about the rain is that it washes out the innocence, which seems to point to the concept of the main character going through this battle with his ego and his arrogance and trying to push back against that and grow in spite of it. But he's still advancing. He is reaching a higher step of evolution. And like I said, the weather is improving. Now at the end, it's scattered clouds at the break of day, and the water resorbs into the ground. So there's actually firm ground that can be seen now. And this is the very first sensation of an embodied existence. So even just in those parts we read, so much of that language is kind of reminiscent of the book of Genesis and the creation account. But this story deviates because if it's describing God or a God type thing, it's describing a God that is created. It is born and needs to grow and learn and expand his knowledge. Christians have always historically taught that God was never created. He has always existed. He doesn't depend on anyone for his existence, and he doesn't depend on like another creator to sustain him or help him out. And it's such an important aspect of God's character that without it, he wouldn't be God. If God needed to be created, then he wouldn't be God because God created everything. Therefore, God can't be created. So yeah, God never went through a complex birth, learning process, evolution of character, anything like that, or apotheosis, that type of big word, to become the God that we know today. He's always been this self-contained, totally independent God that created everything that we see. There's a big gap, a big chasm between the two categories, God and not God. And because he is so consistent, that's why his word, aka the Bible, can be trusted through all times. This creation isn't like surprising God. It's not getting out of his control. I don't, believe in the deist concept of him spinning up a world, letting it go, and then hands off, and now he's kind of just off, I don't know, reading the newspaper or something. No, this is an active God, and his character has always been the same foundation for the ancient Israelites before creation and today in 2024. And this is a very different concept of God than the kind of pantheistic East Asian type religions, which this album could be seen as alluding to, kind of that Hinduism.
Kelly, you are Hindu, so you believe in Buddha.
That's Buddhists.
Are you sure?
No.
And many of those types of religions teach something called monism, which is the concept that there is no divide between God and creation. The creature and the creation, it's all one, mono, and that is how they understand kind of the cosmos and everything around us. So besides viewing this story as an up-and-coming God kind of getting his own wings and coming into self-realization, the other way I've seen people view this is kind of a type of metaphor for human experience, and as the human self grows and learns and comes into a little bit more of an individual being. In a way, as a Christian, I get that. Like, we all have our own journeys that we go through. We all have our own lives, and we are not all the same mind. We are different people. We are individuals, and we need to kind of navigate this life. And there are things that we learn about God, the things that he's revealed, and things that we are responsible for knowing. The book of Proverbs calls this the distinction between wisdom and foolishness. This is a type of foolishness that isn't mitigated by like how much school you go to or how many books you can cram into your brain. It's about a moral foolishness in our hearts that starts with our decision-making and our rebellion against God. And this foolishness leads to death. The book of Proverbs is full of examples of how this foolishness impacts us. It's like an arrow that comes into the liver of a deer, fatal. It's like a snare that grabs your leg as you're walking by and trips you up. And the only cure for this foolishness in Proverbs is the Lady Wisdom, who is fully introduced to us in the person of Jesus. And speaking in the New Testament to these concepts, in Colossians 2, Paul's wish for everyone reading his letter is that they would reach the riches of full assurance and understanding and the knowledge of God's mystery, which is Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. So we need to go to Christ for that wisdom that we seek. In Romans 11, verses 33 through 35, Paul says, "Oh, the depth of the riches and wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable are his judgments and how inscrutable his ways! For who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been his counselor, or who has given a gift to him that he might be repaid?" This is just scratching the surface of how the Bible talks about God's wisdom being over and above ours. So he is that transcendent being that maybe this song is trying to describe, but obviously the origin is very different, right? We are called to, as creatures, submit to God, trust that he knows more than us, and not speculate on these vain philosophies that aren't always very edifying for us. I think it's totally fine for Christians to dive into a story like this, an album like this, read the lyrics, visualize the story, try to understand it, grapple with it, things like that. I think that's great. But at the end of the day, we are called to destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and to take every thought captive to Christ. So we can read these words, we can look at the philosophy behind it all, we can admire the similarities with Genesis and Rene Descartes and stuff like that. But as a Christian, we have our truth set in stone in the words that the unchanging God has given us. So thanks for trekking through that extra long song with me, that really long description there. I don't know how long this video is going to end up being, but hope you enjoyed it. And I hope I was able to distill that information down in a helpful way. Let me know what you thought of the songs themselves with that epic musicality. Those guys are very talented. Hope you liked it all, and hope to see you next time as well. Bye. So stupid, those thumbnails. All right.